When you think about a big boat or a big ship, right, and they have to make that turn, and you think, oh my gosh, it must be so difficult. The mechanism that actually turns it is tiny, this trim tab. So when they make this go a certain way, the entire ship turns. And so the idea of you make a big change with big results with a small movement. Welcome to the Hope and Hairspray podcast. I'm Rhodey Kate.
And I'm Kelly Osborne. Today, we will lead you on a journey of self-development and professional growth. You will be inspired to be the best version of who you were meant to be.
Let's jump in.
Hello. Welcome to today's episode. Today, we are talking about small changes.
Yes.
Micro
changes.
Baby steps, small changes.
Making habits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So lots of good practical, because if anything we do, we are very practical, right? Yeah. We like to give achievable steps. And so today we're talking about steps. So small changes. You actually have a great story that's called the trim tab.
Yep.
And I would love to hear that from you, because I think I've only heard it once, and I know our listeners would love the information that comes from that story.
So in the industry, if you will, like change and HR, we tell the story kind of a lot, because when you think about a big boat or a big ship, right, and they have to make that turn, and you think, oh my gosh, it must be so difficult. The mechanism that actually turns it is tiny, this trim tab. So when they make this go a certain way, the entire ship turns. And so the idea of you make a big change with big results with a small movement. And so, and you know, I've heard this story for years. We talk about it, you know, if any number of learning and development people or change management people get together, someone's going to talk about it, right? And I was watching the Oscars, and there was, what was his name? Okay, I was going to look that up before we chatted today, but
it'll come to you.
It'll come to me. Anyway, but he's doing this. He's receiving his, like, that award you get for the Lifetime Award. Yeah. And he goes off on this trim tab, and I'm like hitting my husband going, I say that we talk about that all the time. But yeah, so the concept of the story is that to move a big ship, it is not what you think. It's a small device and that's what moves the ship. So
wow, that is so opposite, I know, of my thinking,
right?
Because I can think I have to accomplish, like, it's going to take so much more effort, and sometimes I'll even try harder than what it takes. I think when I was, I think you come to learning moments in your life because of situations that are painful, pain points, right? And started doing a lot of reading and research and podcast listening about micro habits.
Right.
And that it doesn't, I think one of my favorite podcasters is Craig Rochelle, and he added one small habit for a year. Like maybe it was flossing his teeth or something. And we think, oh my gosh, but this has been almost 30 years of him doing that.
Right.
So he's got 30 new habits. And so just to scale back that mindset, right?
It doesn't have to be huge to produce huge results, right? And so not only the idea of the size, that small change, I also love to think about it is you can make a small change. Like in a situation where there's a relationship, right? I can't control you, you can't control. We're pretty sure you can't control me and I can't control you. That's pretty clear.
It's pretty sure. Yeah, we're pretty sure about that.
We've tested that. But what I can do is I can make a small change even in my interactions with you, and you will change. It's just sort of human nature. It's the craziest thing.
Well, we have to, right? If you change how you respond to me, I have to change how I respond to you. Like it's just going to happen. If your behavior changes, I can't respond to you the same way anymore.
Right.
Just small changes. And I'm guilty of so swept up in the big, making a big change. Like we're going to do this for 100 days, you know? And you're just like, I remember a good friend of mine used to always say, how about you just strive for more often than not?
Right.
I'm like, wow, right. It's not a go big or go home type of situation.
Right.
Right.
So about the days, right? You said 100 days. And it used to be 3 weeks to make a habit, right? And this research really shows it depends, right? So many things. Our producer, Josh, just said it depends to me before we got on here. And I'm like, I say that all the time. It depends, right? It could be 3 weeks to make a habit. It could be 6 months, however, whatever's going on around it. But it's repeating something over time until it becomes second nature and you don't think about it. And that's kind of from a time perspective. But it can take as much time as you need it to. You can focus on it for a year. I've focused on some things in my life for a year, but these small changes, what I like about them is it doesn't take a year. Like a small change, this month I'm going to focus on this. At the end of the month, I'm going to see how that goes, and then I'll continue it or I'll focus on something different.
You know, you bring up a really good point, Rhodey, is when you talked about doing the small changes. When you miss it for a day, I feel like it's so much more achievable that you can get back on the wagon.
Right.
Right? You don't feel completely defeated.
Right.
Right? I'm going to do X.
Right.
Just small little X, lowercase, right? And I'm going to do that over and over. And if I miss it one day, not being off the wagon, my husband and I talk often about, we didn't fall off the wagon. We jumped off, we lit it on fire, and we pushed it over a cliff.
Yeah,
right?
I've met y'all. I've met y'all.
We could be like that. But when you make lowercase small change, it's more, hey, I didn't hit my goal today, but let's try again tomorrow. So it's almost a space where you're not defeated. Right? You don't feel defeated.
Yeah.
Because you're like, hey, I missed it today. Right? Keep going. Right?
You said more often than not, like you have to be, all in. And the idea of that is grace a little bit, or margin to be able to say, hey, I didn't do that. Like I wanted to. I wanted to do that today and I didn't do it. And okay, but I'll do it tomorrow and look at it. So versus kind of beating yourself up. So I do like that. And then do you have to do something in a big way all the time? Or can you just in moments? That reminds us of the book that we talked about. It also reminds me of you because I know you've got a mentality that fits that with your all or nothing sometimes, right? And I definitely came from an all or nothing mentality. And I've been kind of working on that in the last few years, I would have to say. But you don't need to. You can say, hey, I'm really trying to get healthy. I'm going to walk X number of steps, 8,000 steps or 10,000, whatever, every day. And if I miss a couple of days, okay. Versus I now have to, because I didn't do it or whatever it is I didn't do, and I have to go back and start all over again. And how defeating is that, right? That defeats me. It depresses me, I guess, a little bit. So
for sure.
So you don't have to do that.
The mindset.
Yeah.
Right? Like, hey, I'm going to give myself margin and grace if I don't hit it so many days, or say, I'm going to do it 3 days this week. Right? Make steps that you know you're going to have success with, because those small wins, boy, those really add up in your mind. Right? Where you've got confidence. Wow, I did do it 3 times this week.
Right.
So big deal.
If you don't, like I think sometimes if you have an all or nothing mentality, it's like, oh, I didn't do it all these times, versus celebrating. So I know Clifton Strengths, we talk about that a lot. Developer, one of the attributes of a developer theme strength is that they celebrate small things. And I am not, that's not my really what I am. I used to really always celebrate just the big things. And I learned that from my husband, because he's like, well, no, we didn't get there, but we did this. And I'll be like, that's not the same. And, Grumpy Rhodey shows up. It's super fun for my family. But, so I've learned that from him. It's like, no, you do want to celebrate the small wins or even the half wins, because that's how you're going to get to your goal. And so, I don't know, small changes, small habits. I love the micro. I don't always say that with terminology, but the micro habit and the micro changes, they do add up. And again, think trend tab. You don't need a lot to get you going in that direction. Earlier this year, I went to Borneo. So this was a super fun trip with my family. I was born and raised there, and my family, we were there, I don't know, 10 years. And we were out we're snorkeling, and we're kind of above a sea turtle. And I'm just like, oh, he's so sweet. And you kind of think turtles, oh, they're so, so slow and so sweet. And he did, it's a he, I don't know why he's a he, but I thought it was a he. He did one motion and it wasn't even big. He just went, whoop, and he took off so fast with just one swipe. And it was just like a small movement and he took off. And when I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, sometimes it's just a little something. It'll really get you set. Mm-hmm. So don't overwhelm yourself with it. I think that's my thing is don't overwhelm yourself with this idea of I've got to make big changes when small changes can do a lot.
So that's a lot of internal things that are going on, right? But you had talked about celebrating. Do you incorporate other people into that? Like, do you let them know you're going to make the change so there's accountability there, or they can encourage you? Mm-hmm. Like, how do you see that being effective when you close circle people?
Right.
We'll have an episode all about your circle.
We've talked about inner circles. Actually, we get a lot of feedback. So, comment-wise, let us know whether it's LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook or whatever, the inner circle. And I've had a lot of feedback where people say, yes, I've got a great inner circle. Oh, I don't have an inner circle. I need to find one. So, yes, we'll have to address that more specifically. I think I'm going to go back to your question and say, it depends on what you're trying to do. Sometimes if you are the person and you need that encouragement, then absolutely let someone know I'm trying to work on this I think I've said that to you before. Hey, I'm trying to do this. So kind of remind me that, not to react that way or not to think that way. Sometimes I'll say that to my inner circle. Regardless of if you need it for encouragement, there is this sort of humanness of us that we look at what we see. And if someone has been doing something, like let's say you pop your knuckles, let's do easy math, 100 times a day, and you go, hey, I'm going to stop popping my knuckles. I'm only going to do it 25 times a day because it bugs my sister or somebody I know. Okay, great. So for a week, you've done it 25 times a day. So that's 75% less, right? That my math, yeah.
Yeah, that was good math. Good job.
Right? So I picked 100 for that reason. But the other person, because they don't know that I have gone from 125, they are like, she's popping her knuckles again. So one of the things you want to do is inform someone that you're making a change. And I know that sounds weird, and maybe some are personal, so you don't want to. But if it's something that you're doing maybe for someone, or you think you might want to get credit for it almost, or you want it to be noticeable, you sort of have to announce that's what you're doing. You can do it from the beginning. You said, hey, you know what? Last week I've gone from 100 knuckle popping moments to 25, right? Whatever that. Yeah. But then they'll notice because they're like, oh yeah, it has been less. But if not, we just kind of go back to what the norm, like it's like a bunch of ruts in a road. Is it a rut? Yeah, a rut's in a road where you kind of get stuck in it. Once you get there, it's hard to get out unless someone calls attention to it or makes a new rut or something.
Absolutely. That reminds me the story you told about a campfire story. Actually, it was really windy, so we were gathered around the campfire, but I'm not sure there was a fire in it. But we gathered around, and one of my favorite questions is, what new thing do you want to do by the end of the year? Mm-hmm. And we were around that circle of maybe 12 people, and they all shared from small to bigger, mm-hmm. from I want to move closer to my work. I need to redo my stairs. Just certain things that they wanted to. I want to stop eating sugar. Yeah. And it was so neat to see things happen even sooner because we could encourage each other. Right. And hey, my brother, he has a company that redoes stairs. Yeah. Oh my goodness. And hey, my relative has a rental apartment that's near your work. Right. The power of that whole circle. Mm-hmm. And that way, those changes, some may not be small. Moving is not small. It's a big deal. Is it in the top 10 of life stressors or something?
It is
moving. Moving should be for criminals. It really should. I don't even know packing up boxes and lifting and loading and going upstairs. Yeah, that's no fun. But when you have a team around you that can support you, they can encourage you. They might be 3 people away from who you need. Right. Yeah, I heard about an apartment. My neighbor mentioned it. Let me get back to you. Right. I think it's close to your work. Like those type of things, there's tools and there's power in our words. I need to make this change, just kind of vocalizing it, right?
Right. And then and thinking that, because you just said the word circle, if it is your inner circle, they can remind you. I think my sister and I used to have ear pulling as a signal. Okay, y'all who know me, my family, we're loud talkers in such a big way. And in fact, I was just with my family. There were 6 of us in the dining room, and my brother said, next time we should go to a restaurant where it's quieter. And he was right. It was so loud. There were 6 of us in this room. So loud. Like my niece and I are kind of whispering because I can't even, anyway.
Wow. Is that why we fit in together so well?
That is why we do well. Yeah.
Our volume, is just, it matches each other. We volume match, I think.
We volume match. But when you do let your inner circle, they can help you. They can give you clues. They can support you, or they don't, again, it can be something private that you're not changing. But just remembering, if you're trying to change something, what are the 3 or 4 small steps that will get you there? And you might be surprised on this. One small step might be all you needed. Like, don't over adjust sometimes, right? It's like that small adjustment might, put you back on the right track, and you don't need to do those other things.
That's good. That's really good. Just to remember that. So a little bit, we always challenge mindsets here, right? Like what are you thinking about? Because your thoughts, then your actions will follow. Right. So if you think of something and you realize I'm not thinking of it the way I should be on this change I need to make, if you're constantly saying, I'm just never going to be able to do that. I guarantee you, if you say you're never going to be able to do that, you probably never will be able to do that. So we had a great opportunity about 1.5 years ago. We had a family member who was on the spectrum, had went through 13 years of chronic homelessness.
Oh my gosh.
Right. And was taught almost no life skills, right? And beautiful. She was kind. She was smart. And she needed to learn habits, just some. Right. And so we had to really help her with a concept we call habit stacking. What is she already doing that she can join with that? So one of them was she decided she needed to go get the mail every other day. Right. So she decided to walk to go get the mail. And our mailbox, y'all,
it's far.
It is far away. It's a 1/2 mile from our house.
Yeah.
And so she stacked 2 habits together so she could accomplish 2 things because one was already happening, like brushing your teeth. I need to be a good flosser. Then floss after you brush your teeth. Something you already are doing and you want to do something better or around that area, habit stack it. You have so much more potential to achieve that goal if you join those 2 things together.
And then it's more likely to become a habit, right? So I call it piggybacking. I like habit stacking. I like it so much better. I just can't say it. Then you're more likely to create another habit, and then, success is going to happen. I think that's really important. I love that.
It's super important. And then we had the opportunity to celebrate that with her.
Oh.
Right. And then that encourages the next. So if we bring up habit stacking again, I had success stacking habits together before. I'm going to be much more open to growth. Right. If you have success in your pocket, right? You had a win in your column, you are much more likely to attempt the next change.
Which is why celebration, I think, is important there. For sure.
Big deal to celebrate. Now, if you're trying to cut back on sugar, cake's probably not the best way to celebrate.
I might disagree. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, that's always that's true. But I think when you think about the habits and the small habits is then the number of habits, like how many changes you're making at one time. We've talked before about we're humans and we don't multitask. Like our brain can't do 2 things at once, right? What we're doing is we're switching from concept to concept or task to task. We're going back and forth, and you may be particularly good at switching, right?
Sure.
So for me, I have really fought that, and you are like the queen of multitasking, 100%. You just flip back and forth.
I take
quick.
multitasking very seriously. I had two babies at the same time.
And once again, not quite. The one came and then the other. I get that.
30 seconds, though.
Of course. Of course.
But we talk about Clifton strengths a lot. Yeah. I have a strength called arranger.
You do.
And so we love a lot of plates spinning because we get bored with just one. Mm-hmm. So yes, but I do agree with how you're presenting the concept that we are switching from one activity to the other.
But if you look at the whole concept, you're doing two things at once, right? You're just going back and forth within this span of time.
For sure.
But I think a lot of people are trying to be more present. So as a result of that that's where we talk about, hey, there's really no such thing as multitasking. It's about being present. So, don't get all intense with the words, but this idea of doing something small and then making sure that you're just kind of keep adding to it. Do we have to do it all at one time, right? Focus on something for a month and then add something else. And you sort of not even just habit stacking. Is that right? Did I say it right?
Yeah, good
you
job.
are like, hey, I'm going to do a change and then I'll do another change. So the end of the year, if you do one once a month, it's 12 changes. But if you started at the beginning of the month and did try to do 12 changes at once, you couldn't do it.
And then it would be a big number in the loss column, right?
And you would
just
feel
be like,
horrible,
I'm
right?
out. Right, absolutely. So a lot of people right now are trying to limit technology. You brought up just being present where we're at. So maybe, let's give you practical, maybe it's at dinner time, it's a no phone zone. Right, just try something small. You're already eating and engaging. One of my saddest moments is to go into a restaurant and you see all the tablets get propped up.
Right.
Even parents with their children or grandparents with their grandchildren. And that is, so I know it's on the hearts of people. They probably don't want to be in that space all the time. So just carve out, for 30 days, I'm going to have a no phone zone for 30 minutes. Right? Just something super small that you can accomplish, right?
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing was what you said was the mindset change. Think about how you view change. I mean, we haven't said this for 20-something minutes. People don't like change, right? And this is kind of why
most people don't like change.
Yes, I want to move furniture like with a compulsion. Like the amount of times I move furniture in my house and change it is it's a joke. But anyway, but for most people, it's kind of a big thing. So that's why small changes really do work because they are small.
They do.
And you feel good and you can make progress. And again, think trim tab. So think about how you view change. Take a moment to maybe this week, hey, how do I view change? Is it something I like? Is it something I don't like? How can I do something different? And then I think your micro habits, what is it that right now that's really important for me to do? How can I make that a small step? And how can I integrate it into my world today is what I would say. Like, that's a great way to start. Like, you say the on-ramp, right? Your on-ramp to small changes. I think that'd be a great habit to start and really look at.
Definitely. When we're always getting bombarded with opportunities, right? So our time is constantly being, I tend to fill up white space pretty quickly, but I'm really just starting to understand more of the value of it. But sometimes opportunities come your way. Like we were asked, hey, would you like to be a part of International Friends? And we're like, oh my gosh, what does that require? I mean, isn't that the first thing we ask is what does that require? Yeah. And they said, I think, don't quote me on the percentage, like 90% of international college students never see the inside of an American home.
Oh, wow.
And that some things just hit your heart and you're like, do I have time for that? Mm-hmm. But their concept is beautiful. They ask you not to do anything new. Invite them into Thanksgiving, going to Sam's Club, just certain things that you're already doing. And so we had a student, Peter, 2 semesters, right, for the whole school year. And we had a blast. We had a blast with him. He became a big part of our family for that year. Friends of ours did it. Their girls were actually in this student's wedding when she got older. Like they,
How sweet, yeah.
because they didn't ask me for an extra 4 hours a month, right? They're like, just do it in addition to where you're already doing things. If you're having a holiday, invite them over.
What a piggyback. That's great.
So super simple. So we always give practical tips. When your time, we all have the same, man, time is our currency, right? We all have the same 24 hours. How can we use that to achieve our goals when you're coming into small changes? Like what would be something that our listeners, our viewers could do this week? What could they do?
Well, I do think it's really think about what your mindset is, and then to be able to pick one thing. And really, if you're used to doing a lot, just pick one small thing, even if it feels uncomfortable, do it anyway, and do it for a month. Make it, easy. Hey, I'm going to try it for a month and see how it goes. But don't make it big, and have some grace, right? Have some grace when you don't do whatever you needed to do, and go, that's okay, I'm going to do it tomorrow, and celebrate the wins. Just try it with one small habit for 30 days. See how you feel. Add another 30 days.
I love it. So I'm going to put a challenge out there. So I love to be challenging.
You do.
So we have comments
Yeah.
anywhere on any of our YouTube and LinkedIn and socials where you can comment. Rhodey and I will comment a change that we're going to work on. Will you
Wow.
join in and do that with us, where you can put in there because it's a community then. I don't think we could be the Hairspray Nation, because I'm pretty sure that's a channel.
Yeah.
But Hope and Hairspray wants to come around and create community around these changes, but definitely make them small.
I have to think of something.
Do you want help?
Yeah, you can tell me to.
So thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.